So welcome back everyone to the Trainz BNSF Fall River Division. So this is based on an HO scale layout that NS Milebar 24 did a video on a couple of years ago. Really a great layout and trying to bring it to life with some artistic freedom, because trying to expand an HO scale layout past the walls of the backdrop, past the walls of the basement, can be more challenging than it seems. So we're going to do just an update here of really progress to date. I recently moved the route from Trainz New Era into TRS19, and I'm glad I did it. A lot of lessons learned, which may cover off today, may not, but we went ahead and just started the preview. So we're right now looking at Auburn, which I'm going to do a whole video on. Ton of industry here. I'm modeling it as if a short line does the switching. We're now over the Black Diamond Mine, which is an active mine that loads coal trains for both UP and BNSF. At this point, once we hit this interlocking and we are headed railroad east, UP has trackage rights over the BNSF from this point east back into Fall River. So at this point we have a triple track main line. In the model version it's only two. I ran into a lot of issues trying to automate the operations back here, so I just went to a triple track main line. Add another track, it's really just for holding coal trains back from the mountain, which we'll get to in a second. So we're in a pretty rural area here in the high plains, concrete industry over to our left hand side, and then off to the right is one of my first artistic freedoms I took, which is mainline breaking off south to head down into Wyoming, Denver, and points east, which will include Texas. So now we're entering the town of Kimber. Created in the model version, the UP mainline splits off entirely. Since I have more space, I've created a diamond here in town. There's just enough space between where the UP breaks off and the diamond to fit a train between the two signals, which is what I was going for. So town of Kimber looked better in Trainz New Era. Unfortunately, some of the textures didn't come over, and so I've got to go back and replace a number of those. So decent amount of grid here on the east side of town. Still have a lot of work to do. Most of the industries are pretty much laid out, and so now we're headed continuing railroad east over to Crater Loop, which is a quick ascent up towards into the mountain area where we reach Overlook, which is where we go back from single to double track with another break off to the north called Emerald Junction. We have a river down here to the right hand side. I pretty much started to redo this entire area in 19. I didn't love the way some of the textures looked that I had chosen in Trainz New Era, and really just kind of tearing this out a little bit in terms of the textures used, some of the foliage, some of the rock, etc. So we enter the first of two snow sheds. Still a lot of scenery work to do here, and I apologize about the grid. Snow shed 1 and then snow shed 2 on the right hand side of the shot here. Really try to lay more trees down, more realistic textures. Just didn't have a good look when I first brought it. So we're coming down here into the least scenic area of the entire map. There's a lot of industry that I've not modeled yet, so we're going to have a lumber company, and then there's also a paper mill that's based out of here, a small Cargill facility. I'm just going to skedaddle on through because it's pretty much all grid. So we are set up for a session that I'll be doing some videos on, and we enter the town of Sage as we come across Fall River. Another small Cargill industry. And now as we get closer to town, we've got a bunch of distribution centers. We also have a grain elevator, a small passenger station, which has been pretty much just kit bashed from a variety of scenery items, and heading into the downtown area. Really like these little connectors for splines. If you've got a curve and an intersection and you're using marking lines, really nice way to keep them looking tight and connected without having the lines cross the intersection. We've got a small city park here on the west side of downtown, pedestrian bridge to connect the south side of the right-of-way to the north side with full ramp access. A couple small industries over here. And then this is where I've taken some license. So I've pretty much built out my own version of an intermodal terminal. This is based on the BNSF intermodal terminal in Minneapolis-St. Paul, including how the entrance is set up. So we're going to come off a main road, enter the X-ray facility for scanning, and then into the terminal. I've really spent a lot of time on some of the details here in terms of adding markings that exist in the prototype, labeling lots, lots of arrows to help drivers get around once they are inside the facility. So now we're in the Fall River area, and this is the major terminal. So we've got some flat switching opportunities, a servicing area for refrigerated boxcars, or reefers, if you prefer that term. A Union Station here in town, which I just started really putting down. Really like how this came together. I looked at some pictures of Minneapolis and some other Midwestern cities to just try and get a feel for how this should come together. It was a little odd because it was a 190-degree angle-ish in the modeled version. And then built a small access road out here to got Metro Trainz down here. It's not prototypical because this is not Chicago, but just some type of commuter or maybe Amtrak regional service. So we're going to have a servicing area over here for passenger equipment. UP main lines off to the left, back on home rails, with BNSF fuel pad access here on mains 2 and 3. Main 1 is isolated, no fuel pad access. So UP main line to the left, this will duck down and then turn to the south following the river. We're now following the BNSF main. East, it's actually 2 main split, and I'll cover that in a second. We're now looking at the Iowa Interstate main line off to the left, which is pretty much just a couple staging tracks at each end. And then we're in the Preparation Hill area. A small passenger station is based off of Fox, Illinois, which is on the Union Pacific Geneva sub. I saw some pictures of it and really liked it. Here the Iowa Interstate is going to cross the BNSF, and at this point the BNSF really is 2 separate main lines. So one is going to duck south, which modeled heads towards Lincoln, and the one off to the east will head, which is the one we're going to follow, will head towards Springfield, and I like to think of it as heading towards Minneapolis. So a couple industries over in this area, just east Preparation Hill. We've got Evans Ethanol, as well as another industry that we feature a few times in the layout, which is frozen food or refrigerated food distributor here. Went with searchlight signals just to give some depth of era, and not everything being a modern signal. This area is just going to have a ton of grain elevators. So we've got one built here, which is basically straight out of the model in terms of how it's set up, the road, the trucking access, pretty close to the elevator itself, called Kappa Grains. We had a East single track main line, modeled this area off an area, the BNSF Mendota sub, that's there west of Galesburg, for those of you who are familiar, as well as this elevator, which is not rail served but adjacent to the track. A lot of scenery to do here. On the left side we have the Public Service Company, which is where many coal trains will terminate, dump coal, return empty, large grain elevator on the south side of the main, and then added some modern signals to indicate there's an era transition going on. So we now reach the east end of staging here on the Springfield side, with one of the brand new NS units that was just released from Joiner Rail. Very high quality product, and this is where we stand today. Lots of videos coming up. And now we'll do a couple of run-bys, as is tradition, and get going. So I appreciate everyone. If you haven't already, make sure you like if you did like the video. Subscribe, leave a comment if you have any questions. Appreciate your time.
You gotta give me some time.
Ready to copy, bro.
Crossing an 8.
Both on stop crossing an 8. Hey, I didn't get off that March 13. You're at that's over. Got everything over.
Randy, still over.
Go ahead.
They got 5 pieces of equipment they're bringing down here.
Between CTC Kennedy and milepost 103, 193. Call movements at restricted speed limits occupied by Trainz. Box 12, 16 between CTC Kennedy and milepost 193, 193. Make all movements at restricted speed limits occupied by men or equipment.